Year 4, we are going to be reading Varjak Poor. We started this in class and we'll be starting again so we can hopefully finish it. Chapter 1. The elder Poor was telling a story. It was a Jahal tale, one of the best. Varjak loved to hear his grandfather's tales of their famous ancestor, how Jahal fought the fiercest warrior cats, how he was the mightiest hunter, and how he came out of the Mesopotamia and travelled to the ends of the earth, further than any cat had been before. But today the elder Poor's tale just made Varjak restless. So what if Jahal had such exciting adventures? Varjak never would. Jahal had ended his days in the Countess's house. His family of Mesopotamian blues had stayed here ever since. The old place must have been full of light and life in Jahal's time, generations ago. But now it was full of dust and dusty smells. The windows were always closed, the doors locked. There was a garden, but it was surrounded by a high wall. Jahal was the last to cross it. In all the years since then, no one had ever left the Countess's house. Now, no one except Varjak was listening to the tale of Jahal's adventures. Father, mother and Aunt Junie were dozing in the late afternoon light that trickled through the thick green windows. His brother Julius was flexing his muscles. His cousin Jasmine was fiddling with her collar. His little brothers, Jay, Jeffro and Jerome, were playing one of those kittenish games that Varjak could never see the point of doing, and wasn't even allowed to play anyway. No one was looking at him. This was his chance. He'd been in the garden before, but the family didn't like to go out there and never let him stay very long. Stealthily as Jahal himself, Varjak rose up and padded to the cat door. He could see the garden of the other side. He could almost feel the fresh air brushing through his whiskers. He nudged it open. Varjak Poor? It was his father. Where do you think you're going? Varjak spun round. The tale was over. They'd woken up and seen him, but this time he wouldn't give up. Aren't we allowed in the garden now? He said. Sweetheart, said Mother, coming over and straightening his collar. The garden is a nasty, dirty place. You're a pedigreed cat, a pure-breed Mesopotamian blue. What do you want out there? Varjak looked around at the stuffy furniture, the locked-up cupboards, the curtains he wasn't allowed to climb. He'd never been anywhere else, but this had to be the most boring place on earth. Hunting, he said. Aren't we supposed to hunt? The tales talk about tails, snorted his big brother Julius, green eyes glinting. It was said that their ancestor Jahal had green eyes. Everyone in the family had them. Everyone but Varjak Poor. Tails are for kittens, scoffed Julius. Cousin Jasmine giggled. Varjak bristled. Jahal was a long, long time ago, said Mother, smoothing and grooming Varjak's silver-blue fur, until he wiggled away. Anyway, Jahal came to live in the Countess's house for a good reason. The tales also say there are monsters outside, huge monsters called dogs, so fierce that even people fear them. She shuddered. No, we're lucky that the Countess loves us and lets us live here. The Countess loves some of us, interrupted Julius. Varjak knew what was coming, and worse, he thought it might be true. When I was a kitten, boasted Julius, the Countess was down here all the time. Every day she used to let me play on her lap. She made a fuss of me. But now she only ever comes down to feed us, and sometimes she doesn't even do that. In fact, we've hardly ever seen her at all since that funny-looking Varjak was born. Cousin Jasmine giggled again. This time, Varjak's little brothers, Jay, Jeffro and Jerome, joined in. It's because of his eyes, added Julius, the colour of danger. A Mesopotamian blue whose eyes aren't green, it's an embarrassment. That did it. Julius was bigger than him and older, but Varjak couldn't help it. He faced up to Julius, fur rising with anger. I don't believe you, he said. You're a liar. Varjak, said Father, there's no way to talk to your brother. But Julius said, Whine, 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 sneered Julius. Listen to the little insect whine. Julius, you shouldn't tease him so much, said Father. The Countess is upstairs because she's ill. Nothing more. But Varjak poor, you have to learn to behave like a proper Mesopotamian blue. We're noble cats, special cats. We don't run around calling each other liars. We don't talk about disgusting things like hunting. We don't get our paws all muddy in the garden. That's not what being a blue is about. Do you understand? Varjak's tail curled up. It was always like this. Julius could get away with anything, but everything Varjak did was wrong. Your father's talking to you, said Aunt Julie sturdily. Do you understand? He stared down at the cold stone floor, silent. There was nothing more he could say. Fine, said father. Suit yourself, but until you learn to act like a blue, there will be no supper for you. He licked his chops. Come on, everyone, let's eat. They all headed down the corridor to the kitchen, leaving Varjak on his own in the hallway between the stairs and the front door. Last to go was the elder Paul, the head of the family. Don't worry, Varjak, he whispered. No one else could hear. I'll tell you about Jahal Tale tonight. One about his greatest battle. He winked and joined the rest of them. It made things a little better. Even if the tales made Varjak restless, he loved them. They were the closest he'd ever get to an adventure in this place. He looked at the old wooden stairs covered in dusty carpets. The cats weren't allowed up there now because the Countess was ill. Her door was always shut. The whole house was like that. No one came in and no one went out. Nothing new or exciting ever happened. It was the dullest life a cat could have. Creak! The front door swung open. A blast of wind swirled in, sweeping all the dust in the air. Varjak's fur stood on end. Click-clack! 2 shiny black shoes, each big as a cat, coming through the door. Heart racing, Varjak bent back his head to follow the line above the shoes. Up a pair of legs, up some more, he saw huge white hands, huge enough to hold his whole body and strong enough to break his neck. He had to cane back even further till it hurt to see the face. It was a man Varjak had never seen before. It was hard to make out the man's eyes for the shadows of his brows, and his full pink lips glistened wetly in the half light. The lips creased open, and out came a voice that rumbled like thunder far above Varjak's head. The man strode into the hallway. Varjak felt dizzy. He looked down, but by the man's shiny black shoes, there were 2 sleek black cats stalking into the Countess's house. They were nothing like Mesopotamian blues. They looked much larger and stronger even than father and Julius, and there was something frightening about the way they moved, as if they were 2 parts of one body working perfectly together. Too perfectly. Varjak glanced from one to the other and couldn't tell them apart. They came right up to him and looked down at him with identical eyes as smooth and black as their fur. He trembled. Who are you? He said. There was no flicker of understanding in their eyes, no expression, nothing. They just pushed him aside as if he wasn't even there and took up positions flanking the staircase. And now other men came into the house. Their shiny black shoes clicked past Varjak one by one. It was all he could see of them. Frozen to the spot, mind spinning, he watched the giants pass the cats, climb the stairs and enter the room where the blues weren't allowed to go. And now it's over to Miss Hughes for chapter 2.